there, how are you? I'm Star Penn. I am the creator and founder of the JIA Blueprint, and I'm here to talk to you about the AIP diet, something that most of us come across when we are first looking for alternate ways to go about reversing our children's juvenile arthritis. The AIP diet is usually one of the first things that come along, and on the surface, it seems to make a lot of sense. And so what I want to do is I want to talk to you a little bit about that because it's our children's health and because a lot is at stake here. We know that we have our back up against the wall, whether we are choosing to do this with meds or temporarily without meds, and we really need to get it right. And so I want to share with you some of the pros and cons and just why it is that the AIP diet just does not get you there and some of the reasons why. So for one thing, the AIP diet is just that. It is just a diet, and that diet is geared towards providing the body with foods that tend to have a less inflammatory effect on the body. That makes sense on the surface. So why is that a problem? Well, the problem is that in our modern world, the vast majority of the foods that we're surrounded around are inflammatory. Just going out to eat, even if you were to get everything as clean as possible, just the seed oils alone in the foods that the kids are getting at their school lunches or that they're getting at fast food restaurants or, anything packaged, that in and of itself is inflammatory. So we can see that when we switch to the AIP diet, that means we're going to be doing a lot more cooking at home, making our kids' lunches, making our own foods. And that in and of itself is going to have an effect on the body. And we're going to see that the first response of the immune system is going to be to calm down. It's mostly because we've made such a drastic shift from highly processed foods, seed oils that are highly inflammatory, and other low quality foods to a more homemade type of a diet, which automatically is going to have a response. The body will have some sort of a response. But this is the same response that people were getting a decade ago when my daughter got diagnosed with juvenile arthritis, when everybody was on the go raw vegan train and saying this was the way to reverse juvenile arthritis. Well, of course, if you're going from a standard American diet to eating all juices and raw vegetables and things like that, you're going to see an initial reduction of inflammation. Why? Well, number one, we're not putting so much junk into the body. And number two, we're putting different things into the body. So that's also why nowadays people who are going to the other extreme and doing the carnivore diet, they're also getting that same reaction. They're getting the same initial reaction that a raw vegan would, the same initial reaction that an AIP diet person would, the same initial reaction with the carnivore diet. And what ends up happening is that over time, and sometimes really not a lot of time, we put so much of our blood, sweat, tears, all this work into making all these changes and learning all these new recipes and getting this reduction of inflammation, only to find out not too far down the road that the flare is back, inflammation is back, and we're no better off than we were before. Now, this could play out in multiple different ways, right? Because if we didn't take any of the meds, we would see that flare right away. If we decided to do the AIP diet along with some meds, well, the meds might be masking some of some flares that would come up, right? Because that's what they do. So we wouldn't know until after we weaned off the meds how the AIP diet was working. So I want to explain to you why this is the case and why it doesn't have the lasting effect that we're hoping that it would, and why it's so important that we get that lasting effect. So what we want to understand about our child's juvenile arthritis, we want to take it a step further than the inflammation, because that's really as far as our doctors allow our minds to go. It's like, okay, this is an inflammatory issue. This is an immune system issue. We need to stop the inflammation. That's really where we live and where we go with the juvenile arthritis. But what I want you to think about is, why does my child have inflammation? Why is there inflammation there in the first place? And that's going to give us so much more information, and it's going to make the way that we go about healing in the blueprint make a lot more sense to you. So when we think about, well, why is there inflammation in my child's body? Well, what we want to understand is that inflammation is a result. Inflammation is a result of an immune system detecting something that doesn't belong in the body. Think fever, think flu, think virus. We see an immune response to things like that, and we automatically know that these are indicators that our body is fighting something when we have this inflammatory response in the body. So that's the exact same thing that's happening with our children with juvenile arthritis and really any other autoimmune or neurological condition that's going on in their body. But we're focusing on juvenile arthritis here because that's why you're here. Okay, so why is our child's body even inflamed in the first place? We want to go there. Okay, well, the immune system is detecting toxins in the body. Okay, that's more information. Let's ask the next question. Why are there toxins in the body? Where do these toxins come from? So what we're learning and what science is now coming to understand, and what our medical doctors, thank goodness, are starting to understand, is that these toxins are coming from holes in our child's gut lining that are getting out into their immune system. Why there's holes in our child's gut lining is for another video. Look in my video about glyphosate and parasites, anything in that realm having to do with yeast, parasites. Glyphosate is a big one where I really get into that subject. But what we know to be true now is that there's holes in our child's gut lining and these toxins are getting out, and that's what's causing an immune response. So why am I explaining that? It's because that information is going to help us to understand just what the AIP diet is doing for our child temporarily, and also why it just does not have the capability to help them long term. So going back to the beginning, what we understand is that we are taking the way our child ate before and we're switching it to this other diet. Granted, very wholesome foods in and of themselves. And if it weren't for this underlying issue of toxins pouring out into their bloodstream, getting the immune system's attention, this would be a very healthy diet. And it is a very healthy diet. It's just not a diet that is going to reverse our child's arthritis. And if you're here, that's what you're looking for. How do I reverse this? How do I get a happy, healthy child who can do all the things that they want to do in their life and not have to worry about this disease anymore? We need to reverse the disease. So what happens is we start feeding them this new diet, and the immune system that gets conditioned to go after certain triggers when it sees it, when it gets out in the bloodstream, now doesn't recognize these new food particles that are coming into the bloodstream. And maybe we're getting less food particles because we're eating more whole foods. Maybe the foods are bigger chunks, right? Because we know our kids don't chew as well as they should, right? So if they're eating like vegetables, blanched vegetables and chicken now, and they're going to chew and swallow. Well, these are most likely bigger pieces of food that aren't as readily seeping out into the bloodstream as, like, let's say they were eating Cheez-Its or Goldfish, or we were, whatever. I'm just making a quick comparison, but really these foods that quickly get absorbed and digested by the body because of the way that they're so processed. These are minuscule particles that's just like a sieve, go right into the bloodstream, and the immune system recognizes them. So that's why gluten has been a big problem for people. And then all of the things that, we see the corn, we see eggs, we see milk. These are all things that are broken down and highly processed in so many of our commercial foods. They're in like a powdered form, in a very processed form. And so they just go right into the bloodstream, and it's very concentrated, gets the immune system's attention right away. So we're switching now, more whole foods. So one thing is that these foods aren't getting into the bloodstream as readily, and these are new foods. So the immune system is like, oh, good, like I can turn down like all these other things that I've been reacting to aren't showing up. So I can go calm down. I can go heal somewhere else. I can do something else. And so we fly under its radar for some time. But what does end up happening over time is these new foods that we've introduced into our child's body, these healthy foods, no matter how healthy they are, if they're able to cross over that intestinal lining into the bloodstream, they are an invader, because food does not belong in the bloodstream. And any kind of invader that gets in the bloodstream, the joints and tissue, fatty pieces of the organ are naturally going to, like a magnet, try to attract these things to keep them out of the view of the immune system. And so we have this mechanism going on in the body. The body is so wise. It has mechanisms to protect us from things like this. But this is like an ongoing thing that just keeps on going on and on and on in our child's body. If it weren't for the holes in the gut lining, our child's body can handle all sorts of things, all sorts of toxins and chemicals and pollutants and all of that. It's getting bottlenecked and backed in, because this is something that's been going on for months, maybe years, maybe since they're born. I know for my daughter, that was the case since she was born, hindsight, right? So that's really what we're getting when we switch from the standard American diet to any diet. We get a reprieve period because the body's not recognizing these new foods right away. And also, it's quite possible that because we are eating more whole foods, maybe less is getting into the bloodstream. So let's talk about that, because that's good, right? Less food is getting into the bloodstream. But let me ask you, what is the AIP diet doing to seal off the gut lining so future food doesn't get into the bloodstream? It's not doing anything. There's supplements that you can take, synthetic supplements that are highly processed in themselves, that you might get recommended by a naturopath or a functional doctor, or maybe you found online, and they technically on paper have these components in them that they have the ability to, let's say, seal and heal the gut. But just because something can do that in and of itself doesn't mean necessarily that when we consume it in a processed pill form, that is in fact what it is going to do for our child's body. In fact, oftentimes the amount of fillers that are in those pills just feed the bad bacteria in the body. Many times these pills are just not potent enough. They just do not do what they say they're going to do. And we're really just giving our child's body another task, another thing to digest, another thing to figure out what it is, because really, if it's not real food, the body doesn't know what to do with it. So we might be thinking, well, I'm going to do the AIP diet, but then I'm going to take these supplements that do. And unfortunately, because most people who do the AIP diet do that, unfortunately, it just doesn't work, because we're in a culture where we want to put a Band-Aid on something, or we really do believe, we've been told from marketers our entire life that you want this is your item, this is your product, this is what's going to do it, this is what's going to get you there. And we, as much as we all really, I myself truly believe I'm smarter than that, I fall for stuff like that all the time. And that's really what happens to us, because our child is sick, we're looking for solutions. It's very easy to say, oh, let me get this CBD, or let me get this turmeric, or let me get this L-glutamine. This, this is what's going to do it. That's what's going to do it. And it's just so much more than that. Not more like more complicated, but more like thorough. We're not going to be able to throw something at this. That's what we need to understand. We cannot throw something at this. We want to reverse our child's arthritis. That requires being one with the body, really being intuitive and listening to what the body needs in order to heal. And more than anything, just really understanding what's going on in the body so that we can do X, Y, Z. Because if we don't really understand what's going on, what caused this, what needs to be done, and in what order, we're really just throwing stuff at it. And that's why so many of us end up, and when it's all said and done, we end up at the rheumatologist's office and we end up giving in and we end up doing that. And side note, that's why your rheumatologist has such a problem with people going the natural route, because that's what they see. Probably in their case, 100% of the time. And so it is a big deal. Your child's health is a big deal. And what rheumatologists see all day, every day, you're not the first person to try the AIP diet. Okay, yes, eating healthier is going to make your child healthier. But what we're ignoring with the AIP diet is that it does not seal and heal and rebuild the gut. It does not repopulate the gut with good bacteria. Again, remember, how did these holes get in there in the first place? The glyphosate, the overgrowth of yeasts and parasites in the body. Are we dealing with those with the AIP diet? Is it a matter of like, well, let's just do a parasite cleanse or let's just do a candida cleanse? Oh, it's so much, it's so much more delicate than that. We can't just throw cleanses at the body. We can't just throw, supplements at the body and think that we're just going to end up with no arthritis. This really has to be done with intention, with knowledge, and with patience and with understanding what we're doing. So we have the underlying issues that are going on in the body, underlying infections that need to be dealt with. We probably have lots of children that have issues of heavy metal toxicity going on in their body, which is driving the disease. It could be that they have a mold exposure that is driving this disease. Again, we have the parasitic, the infectious yeast component that usually all of these things are present. One would likely come before the other, and that can vary, but usually one just dominoes into the other, and we end up with a host of problems that are the underbelly of our child's juvenile arthritis. And these are the things that we're ignoring if we are only going about this with an approach of changing our child's diet, because that is not dealing with anything underlying or even handling it. So all of these things are just existing and unchanging while we just change their diet. And that's why eventually the symptoms come back and we're in the exact same boat and we end up feeling defeated and frustrated and terrified and overwhelmed. And that's when we throw in the towel, because it is a serious disease and we don't know what to do. And we will say we've tried everything, when in fact the body heals itself. It does know how to heal itself, but do we know how to give the body the tools to heal itself? Now, we talked about earlier on in this video how things just get backed up and bottlenecked in their body. So we're not just dealing with the gut. Even with the approaches that say, yes, we need to do the diet, but yes, we also need to heal and seal the gut. Well, what about all the toxins in the body now? And they've just been circulating and circulating again for who knows, months or years or a lifetime. Where are those toxins now? How are our child's detox organs handling all that? And when the body's detox organs do decide to release them, do they have anywhere to go? Or, a lot of our kids, they don't have problems with bowel movements. A lot of them do. But for the ones that don't have a problem with bowel movements, we can think that, oh, my child's detoxing fine. But just because they're making a bowel movement 1 or 2 or 3 times a day doesn't mean that there's not even more toxins in their body that just do not have a way out. And what ends up happening is they just get redistributed and deposited somewhere else into another organ or tissue to cause another inflammatory response, whether it be joint or whether it be another organ, creating the need to go to another specialist and developing another autoimmune disease or a hormonal disorder or a neurological disorder, just depending on where in the body the toxin lands and where the immune system detects it. So there's all these different components and things that are going on in the body. And this is the reason why, as healthy as the food is in the AIP diet, that in and of itself, even along with supplements, even along with, say, probiotics and things like that, that's the reasons why in the end it falls short and it does not reverse our child's juvenile arthritis. So while the AIP diet is a very healthy diet and the foods are great and you will see some improvement with your child when you switch from the standard American diet to eating AIP, this is not going to get you all the way clear and out of the woods for good. There will always be something underlying, and there will always be a heightened immune response in the body and the potential for further joint damage and also additional autoimmune diseases. And so inside the JIA Blueprint, we handle things much more comprehensively. Every single one of my clients gets one-on-one direct support on a daily basis on how to handle their child's healing process, whether it be about dealing with gut issues, whether it be about detoxing or dealing with underlying infections or whatever is needed that day. And because you get that one-on-one support and because you have lifetime access to me in the program and you're able to know what to do every single minute of every single day, there's no room for error, and you're able to quickly and completely reverse your child's arthritis in an amount of time that would blow your mind, really, but I couldn't even compare it because you're not really getting that with other methods. And part of it, a huge part of it, has to do with the level of coaching you receive. Because even if you had all the information in the world, how does that information translate into a transformation for you and your family? While you have to work, you have other kids, you know, your husband has to work, they have activities, not just everyday life, but then the things that come up in life, the things that throw wrenches in our day. That information doesn't do us a whole lot of good. Even if we had it all and could stick it all in our brain at once, it wouldn't do us much good if we didn't have the support and guidance and somebody to help coach us through getting that work done every single day. And so that's why all my clients get these results. All my clients reverse their children's juvenile arthritis by sticking with the program, by leaning on me, by taking advantage of every resource that I offer them inside the blueprint. So that way they are on a straightforward moving path towards reversing juvenile arthritis by rebuilding the gut lining, restoring it, by sealing it off, by clearing the detox pathways, by dealing with all the underlying infections. And these are things that we may not know what to do when on our own. And even with a functional medicine doctor, which most, if not all of my clients also have one of those, you don't get these same results because you can only see your functional medicine doctor as often as you can go and see them once every 6 weeks, every 3 months, however often. And you only have that period of time with that doctor and the tinctures or supplements that you buy at that time. And you just do the same thing until you see them again, and then run more tests and then get more supplements and run more tests and then get more supplements. But you're on your own through that period of time. And that's what the JIA Blueprint fills in. All that time, you have functional support, you have nutritional support, and you have emotional support as well. And so that hopefully gives you some insight as to why I do not recommend the AIP diet to reverse your child's JIA. I find that parents who come into the blueprint already on the AIP diet, it's great because you've already been used to making things yourself, and that a learning curve, a good chunk of the learning curve has already taken place. But there is much more to it. It does require, daily focus on your part and support on a day-to-day basis, minute-to-minute basis, sometimes if necessary, in order to get over every hurdle and bump along the road that comes along with a child that we're trying to reverse a serious autoimmune disease with. So I hope that this information is helpful to you. As always, please subscribe to this channel. Share this video with anybody that you know and love that has a child with juvenile arthritis. If you feel this would be helpful for them, please like this video. And when you do that, it the algorithm starts to know which kind of people are really looking for this information, and it'll help more people get on this road to healing with their children's juvenile arthritis. All right, I'll see you on the next video.